Hi, I'm John Celestri. I love Silver and Golden Age comics, and I want to share my collection with you. I'm doing deep dives into issues of particular series to show you why they are very satisfying reads. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, uh, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, and leave a comment. Also, if you want to check out what I'm doing with my indie comic creations, check on the website link that I have below. And now for the show. Here we are with the Fantastic Four number 4. Uh, as you can see, it is declaring itself the world's greatest comic magazine. And that is pretty much of a Stan Lee-ism. Anyway, you can see how, this is not it's not a great copy at all. I wish I hadn't loaned it to, a friend, a so-called friend, back when I was 12 years old. His young sister really messed it up. So I learned my lesson: never, 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 never lend your comics to anybody. So anyway, here we are. It's Fantastic Four, number 4. This is the first time I'm actually showing this to anybody else. But you can see the front cover tells a whole story in itself, and it sets up the basic storyline, and the title says it's all: The Coming of the Submariner. So well, let's get started with this here. I'll turn this around. You can see it had an ad in the inside front cover, and it's copyright. It's published in May of 1962. I'm 12 years old at that time, and the Fantastic Four was a really groundbreaking comic. It was really different from everything else that DC was doing. It had all different kinds of elements. But let's go on. I really enjoyed at that time, Jack Kirby and his approach to things. So anyway, page 1 here sets up the interfamily feud between Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm, the Torch, and Ben Grimm is the Thing. Now, you've got Mr. Fantastic, you've got Thing, and you've got Sue Storm, the Invisible Girl. And in the previous issue, Johnny has left the group and disappeared into New York City, where they live. Now, they made the Fantastic Four was the first time they actually said what the name of the city that they were in. It wasn't Metropolis, it wasn't Gotham, it was actually New York City. So, let's see here. Page 2, they have there's a flashback that just recounts the previous issue's activity. Page 3, shows off their flying gadget car. They had a brand new thing that they were trying to do, and they introduced it in the third issue. They had a way of getting around and just hovering. And Mr. Fantastic was, besides having, a plastic man's ability to elongate himself, he was a really incredible scientist. So anyway, also in page 3, we start showing the powers that these various characters have. In page 2, that the Thing is really, really strong, so he could smash things. The Invisible Girl can go around and act like a ghost. you have Mr. Fantastic showing his ability to stretch his arms, and in fact, he's incredibly strong. I mean, not just his ability to stretch. Look at that, hold somebody that like that. Anyway, and then also we set up set to where Johnny Storm is, and he's a hot rod kid. He's a teenager. Uh, it's flame on, and he can do his own torch, which is what he is. So then we show off Johnny's flaming abilities, and the thing is playing a hunch and about where he thinks Johnny is, and he smashes in, and we start to have our own little battle. Let's get to page 6. The Fantastic Four page. It's a fan page. That was one of the great things about this. You'd have people from all over, Mexico City, New York, Massachusetts, California, writing in, and just anyway. And so in this one here, an air conditioning ad on how to get a nice high-paying job in air conditioning and refrigeration. So anyway, so enter the Submariner, and page 6 is basically it's a sibling squabbling that's going on between Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm. So then we have on the next page is basically Ben would every now and then change. In the early days, it was a spontaneous transformation back to his human form. He had no control of it, as you can see. That he separately he starts changing into the human form, and that allows a cornered Johnny to get out of the way and to leave. But while he's Ben is saying, "I don't care, get away from me. I'm fine. I'm human again, and he's turning back into the thing." And I think that's something that Ben's personal struggle comes through, and that makes him a very sympathetic character. And that's something that I remember personally relating to as a young kid. I could really feel for him. So again, this is in the writing. It's not just a plot-driven thing. It's a character development. And this is one of the things that I say about the early Fantastic Fours from number 1 through 10, maybe through 1 through 12. There is a whole world dynamic, family dynamic that's made, and it really felt like they were doing something brand new. Kirby and Lee were doing something that hadn't been done with comics before. And that's what made it, they started becoming very popular amongst college crowds over a span of time. But right now, I mean, I'm 12 years old. By the time the college craze of Marvel Comics takes place in 1968, I'm 19. I'm into my third year of college, of university. So it takes a while for that to develop up, but it grows with you. Anyway, so now we've cut to Johnny, who's now walking on the streets of the Bowery, and that is a place where the Bowery today is different from the Bowery of the 1920s and 30s and 40s, 50s, and 60s. It was a place where it was, it was Skid Row. It was the lowest place to live. And as Johnny says, this is the one place where nobody will find me. I'll just lose myself among all the other human derelicts here. So he finds a place to sleep, a flop house, and that's where he picks up, a comic book. And what he says is, well, I'll figure out what I'm going to do. He said, well, it's not the Waldorf, but it'll keep me safe, hidden while I plan my next move. Say, look at this old beat-up comic mech. It's from the 1940s. It's the Sub-Mariner. And I remember Sis talking about him once. He used to be the world's most unusual character. And then, now here's the thing about this comic book and this sequence. They treat the Sub-Mariner and the comic book as though the comics were being fact-based, as though Namor, Prince, the Sub-Mariner, Prince Namor, was an actual human, or actually existed. So that's an interesting element to this. Anyway, so the thugs and the bullies are picking on this old guy, and they say, hey, and we wind up here. The tough guys make fun of this old bum, but that turns out into a short, a Jack Kirby fight sequence. So we leave with that, and it's page 10 is the big reveal. Johnny looks at these guys and they say, hey, with all these sticks, they're going to start, in clubs, and they're going to bash this old man guy. He runs to his defense, and he he flames on, and he reveals himself to be the Human Torch that everybody knows. As I say, look at that, holy cow, it's a Human Torch. And he starts, and with his little flame, he starts shaving the old man, and he says, I control the flame of my body to within a hair's width. Hey, wait, his face. No, it can't be. It is. He's the Sub-Mariner. Okay, a reveal. And this is the great thing. One of the classic old Marvel Atlas confrontations of the 1940s was the Human Torch and Sub-Mariner. So now they've brought this together in this dynamic. And speaking of dynamic, you can get your own 8mm projector for only $6.98, and a complete 4-piece matched of luggage for $2.98. Anyway, we are now into the next page of their Mr. Fantastic is searching through old New York. Note the elevated subways. This is, and also the strap hangers and the hats that everybody wore, which is basically, this is very early 1960s, very much of a sense of place. The early 60s actually felt they were still, this is pre-Beatle, this is still very much of the 1950s. So anyway, here we are with their Sue goes by and misses them by mistake. She doesn't see them. They definitely can't see her because she's invisible. And Johnny is trying to take the Namor, and it's a torch. He's trying to help Namor recover his memory, and he establishes the modern version of the Golden Age's Torch and Namor relationship. And you'll note the simple use of color throughout. Very simple to get a feeling of dynamic, underwater elements. So he drops them into the water, into the sea, which is really easy because you got the East River and the Hudson River, and you just drop them off into the water, and you're in the ocean. And so suddenly you now see which is very interesting how Namor gets rid of all of in one great sweeping motion. He hurls his outer garments from him and stands in his, his bathing suit and his wings, his his heeled winged heels, and he starts flying and he's swimming and he's just having a grand old time. But the problem here is Namor gets back to to Atlantis, and he realizes very quickly all of Atlantis has been destroyed. There's glowing radioactivity. There used to be a lot of underground water atomic testing back in the 50s, and so now we have a situation where all of his land, his country, his world has been destroyed, and this is where the aspect of Namor wanting revenge comes into play once again, because it reawakens the 1940s element of Namor hating the human race. But in this case here, Johnny Storm, the Human Torch's attempt to do a good deed for Namor, has awakened a terrible villain, as you can see by his maniacal laugh here. Again, learn radio electronics, radio television electronics in your spare time. The rest of the Fantastic Four have failed to find the torch and have flown their cars back to the top of the roof of their headquarters, and suddenly they see a flare. And who it is? It's the flare from Johnny from the torch, and it's an emergency signal. So they get together and they're flying off, and they're seeing that Johnny is there and explaining the circumstances, the situation. They reconnect with Johnny, and he reports. He tells them what has happened and what they have to deal with, and the thing says, "Bah, who's worried? Nothing human can stand up to the thing. That's the scary part, mister. He ain't human." Now we get into the situation of Namor, and he begins his attack on the human race by awakening the largest living thing in all the world, the deadly Gigantor. Gigantor, it's an interesting aspect of it. Prior to just before the period of time of the night of the Fantastic Four and the Rawhide Kid and such, Kirby used to do a lot of monsters, and they all seem to end in a vowel, Fing Fang Foom or Gigantor or Walthor or Zcor. A lot of strange voiced sounding monsters that Jack Kirby used to do. And now here is these following pages are a great example of compressed storytelling. There's a lot going on. We have Namor awakening and leading his monster. The monster does a whole, destroys a ship, and we now have all kinds of communications going on around the world, emergency radio, and saying what can we do about this monster? And we have an evacuation of New York City, and people are in some sort of panic but are moving. And then you got your cannons and your Godzilla shot, and then meanwhile, the Fantastic Four are trying to figure out what to do. The monster is impervious to artillery shells. Torches, the Human Torch's flames are extinguished by the monster's, a blowhole, and Johnny is saved by Mr. Fantastic, and then Namor ups his attack. blowing on his horn. And here comes the giant, the monster crashing on an enormous number of buildings and just doing a belly flop on them. Anyway, here the thing, is really macho. He verbally shoves aside the invisible girl, with, and this again, he's saying, "One side, woman. I got me an idea." What is it, thing? What can you do? Well, this really shows the attitudes of the 1960s. But anyway, here we have a very compressed storytelling in panel 4, and I'll just read it. It says, "Moving like a man possessed, the thing races from one military depot to another until he finds a nuclear bomb strapped to his back. I still can't believe it." That's the army guys, saying that, and here he is strapped with some, I don't know what he's got used to strap to his back, but it's and and it's a tire. It's a tire. He's using a lift to help him, get that up onto his back, which is real. I've never seen. I don't know if that is actually something that you can do, but anyway, he's now, walking through. Ben has got the thing that the thing has got his an atomic bomb strapped to his back, and he's crawling across over wreckage and such until he can get to a sleeping monster, who is it's like a scene from Pinocchio. There is the giant whale mouth here, and Grim, with his bomb strapped to his back, is walking through the mouth, and that's really something. I mean, but again, it's all compressed storytelling. A pinup of Mr. Fantastic, some advertising. I guess you were. This was a mail order stuff back then. Here we are on page 19. This is some more compressed storytelling, where he comes through. He's walking through the mouth, and I guess these are tonsils or what have you. He's going past ancient vessels, ocean craft, which had fallen victim to Gigantor many long ages ago. And then suddenly, I should have guessed. A giant like him would be apt to swallow lots of undersea monsters alive, and here's one of them. So now we have this. We're going to have a little quick bit of action, but a note that this panel here, in this first panel, suddenly Kirby added the ticking time bomb sound effects, heightening the tension and urgency to the fight. So this is where we go, and the tick tock, tick 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 all the way through until blast, blam. It is really fun stuff. And so now we have in this the urgency of his fighting, and you get the feeling you don't need more than that. You really don't. But yet on the panels, you've got 2, 4, 6, 8 panels on this page. In this case here, you have a momentary, in these few panels, you have a momentary sense of victory. But on the panel meant to make you turn the page, there's Prince Namor. You'll find out soon enough who I am. The whole world will know the Submariner. You haven't beaten me yet. As long as I have this horn, I can summon countless other sea monsters to attack you. And that's, once again, it's turn the page. But then it's Sue, who then, being invisible, takes it out of his hands immediately and starts running across the rubble, being chased by Namor, who tackles her and says, "Who is this? What's going on?" The lower panel, we suddenly have Namor grabbing and startling once again Sue, who turns visible just because of her. She says, seeing that her plight is hopeless, Sue Storm becomes visible again, and well, here is a prize worth catching. And so here we have these lower panels reflect the sexual attraction story element that Kirby injects. And Simon and Kirby started romance comics back in the 50s. Kirby and Joe Simon and Jack Kirby did an enormous amount of every type of genre, but they actually invented the romance as we know it. It was sexual tension in 1950s time. So there is Namor saying, "You're the loveliest human I've ever seen. If you will be my bride, I will show you mercy to the rest of your pitiful race. How can I make such a choice?" And anyway, here you go. It's romance, it's soap opera. This is what he does. And he is going to, Namor vows revenge on all humanity. The Invisible Girl offers herself to Namor, who is insulted, saying, and it says, "You speak as though you are sacrificing yourself. Don't you realize what an honor I offer you? You can become Princess Namora, bride of the Sub-Mariner, co-ruler of Earth." And this is where the boys say, "Hey, not over our dead body." And then they're just not enough. He's too strong for them. And he just knocks them over. And this is where we get a little something with the Human Torch, then flames on and removes the present danger of Namor's presence. He flames on, swirls around, and creates a tornado, an enormous wind suction, sucking up. And this is incredible because this is the first time I've seen this here in terms of Human Torch being able to do this. But he's sucking everything into a whirlwind, and he's able to lift up not just Namor, but also the whale, the giant monster, and able to bring them off into the ocean, far, far away, miles and miles away, and he drops. Namor drops his horn down to the deepest part of the ocean and is lost in the murky depths. And Namor vows vengeance on the Fantastic Four, and he says, "I'm not beaten yet. They're stronger than I thought, but it's not enough to finish Namor. I'll be back. Do you hear? I'll be back." And so this sets up another story, but at least it now has the end. The story is complete. This adventure is done, and you have a beginning, middle, and end. In this is 23 pages. It's great compressed storytelling, and I think we need more of this. But it takes an ability to have more than just fight. You need to have a story arc and be able to do it from within 23 pages, even 32 pages, because basically a lot of these are like 7, 8, 9 page 9 panel pages. And there's also a simplicity to this. Extremely simple. And don't try and milk. This was not being milked with an extraneous amount of verbiage. There's a lot of stuff going on, but all of this is important dialogue. It is not just dialogue that's snarky. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to do another one I'm hoping to do maybe one a week of these, maybe one every 2 weeks. But I will try and do a Golden Age comic next time, or maybe not. Tune in, and thank you. And once again, please give this a thumbs up. Um, Click on the link and subscribe. And see you next time.